Welcome friends to the fourth part of this mini-series on relational database architecture. So in the previous video, we talked about how to create tables in Supabase as well as how to create views by joining some of these tables together. So in this video, we'll be seeing how we can use the tables that we created previously to actually link it up and reflect it inside of our FlutterFlow UI on the front end side. So over here, I have already made a template for our book repository app containing the home page, which shows all of the book covers over here, as well as a book details page for the actual individual books themselves, containing the book cover, the book title, author name, ISBN number, as well as all the other descriptions from our author's information, as well as the edition's information over here. So I've already put a link down in the video description to clone this basic template project so that you don't have to go ahead and remake all of this UI. You can just copy that, clone the project, and we can get started on actually linking up the back end side of things. Alright, so first things first, we would need to actually link up our FlutterFlow project with our Supabase project. So in settings and integrations, over here, we want to scroll all the way down to integrations, and you can see that there's a Supabase integration. We want to enable Supabase, and here we need to pass in an API URL as well as an add-on key. We go back to our Supabase dashboard and we scroll all the way down to project settings. And inside project settings, under configuration, there's an option for API. And we want to copy our project URL and paste it as our API URL. Then inside our Supabase dashboard, we want to copy this add-on public key and we'll paste it inside this add-on key text field over here. Next, we want to press get schema, and now you should see that all of our tables as well as our views are reflected over here, meaning that Supabase has successfully been integrated with FlutterFlow. So it's important to get schema whenever you make any changes to your tables. So for example, if I add a new column inside my authors table, or if I add a completely new table itself, or even if I create a new view, then we will have to go and get schema once more so that FlutterFlow is linked up and updated to the newest version of our Supabase project. Alright, so now that that's out of the way, we can go back to our widget tree, and now we can actually reflect our individual books inside of this list view over here. So with the list view selected over here, I want to go ahead to this option, backend query, and I want to add a new query. For the query type, it will be a Supabase query since we're using Supabase. And the table that I want to query is actually the books table, since each one of these containers will reflect one book that the user can click on to go to the book's details. The query type will be a list of rows since we want to get multiple books, and we don't need to add any filters since we want to get all of the rows inside our books table. So we'll click on confirm and confirm. And you should now see that for under this list view widget over here, there's a Supabase query for books. So great. And then now we can actually go ahead and link up the data so we can reflect the image of the book inside this UI. And I just realized that our books table is actually missing one extra column, which is actually the cover image of the book. So let's go ahead and quickly add that column now. So with our books table selected, you can scroll all the way to the right and you see this plus icon. We can click that and we can add a new column. So we can add cover underscore image. For the type, it will be of type text. So it's a string, and yep, we can just save it. So now we can go back to our FlutterFlow dashboard. And since we added a new column over here, we made a change to our table, we have to go ahead and get schema once more. So this is what I was talking about. So under settings and integrations, under Supabase, we need to get schema. You can see that under the books table, there is no column called profile or cover image. So once we get schema, yes, you can see that under the books table, we have a new column over here, cover image. So great. Now we can use the data associated with the cover image column inside of our FlutterFlow app here. So with the container selected, we'll go to the right hand corner over here, and under background image, we want to choose that option, and for this path, we'll tap on this orange icon over here, and we'll set it to our books row, cover image view. And now this will generate the image dynamically based on the data from our cover image row for each of these books itself. Alright, great. So now we want to add the action where when the user taps on this container, he will be sent to the books detail page. So let's tap on this container, we'll go to the action flow editor, and we'll open the action flow editor. We want to choose the on tap action trigger. We want to add a new action, and we want to navigate to our books detail page, book details page. Close out of this, and now we can go to our book details page. However, now we face another problem, which is that we do not have information in this page, since we only have the information of the book from this home page itself. So we actually need a way to pass the chosen book details from our home page to our book details page. How we can do that? Well, in our book details page, we can define something called a page parameter. So we click on our book details page root page over here, and at the top right hand corner over here, you can see that there's an option to add a new page parameter. So we'll go ahead and add a new page parameter, and we'll call this parameter book underscore ID. Oh, and one more thing about the parameter name. Note that the name must be in this thing called camel case, which is basically the first word has to have all lowercase letters, and subsequent words will have the first letter of the word uppercased. So instead of book underscore ID, it will be book, and then capital I and D. So yep, that's the parameter name. And for the type, it will be of type integer, since we are passing our book's ID column over here. So it's a required parameter, since we obviously need the book to exist before we can show any data, and we'll click on confirm. And now in our home page, when the user taps on this book, so we open the action flow editor once more, you see that now in our navigate to action, we are able to pass a parameter over here. So we need to pass our book ID parameter, which will be from our books row and the ID column of that book. So we can close out of this, and now we can go back to our book details page. Alright, so now that we have access to the exact book ID chosen by the user, we can actually use this book ID to query the necessary data to display it inside of this page here. So let's first query our book data. So inside of this column, we can add a new query by clicking on this backend query option, and we can add a Supabase query. For the table, it will be our books table, and instead of a list of rows as the query type now, we only want to choose a single row, since we only need the book data of a single book. And now we can add filters over here. We need to add a filter, and the filter has to be where the ID column of our books table is equal to our book ID page parameter. So this only gets the row of this specific book. And then now let's change this information. So let's change the image first. So inside background image, we'll click on this orange icon once more, and under book rows, this will be the cover image. Now for the book title, you scroll up to text properties, and we'll choose book rows title. We also need to specify a default variable value. I'll just give it null. Alright, so now that we have defined the title, we have linked up the title, we move on to this byline over here. So you can see that this is a text combination, and we actually have to give the author name. But notice, if we go into our books row query, we do not have access to the author name itself. And that is because this is just querying our books row. We need to access the data from our authors table instead. So how can we actually access this data? Well, this is where the concept of Supabase views comes in. We can join our books and authors table together so that we can do a single query to get the data from the authors as well. So let's go into our SQL editor, and let's go ahead and create a new code snippet. And here we want to create a new view. We'll give this view name book authors view as enter and tab select, and the columns that we need are all the columns from the books table, so books dot star, comma, and now let's see what data we need from our authors table. Well, technically for that query we only need the author name, so we can actually just go ahead and type in authors dot name because we only need the name of the author. And then now we can type in from, and now the base table that we want to query for a many-to-many relationship is actually the intermediate table itself. So we need to get the intermediate table, which is our book author relation. So for this from, instead of books or authors, it will be book underscore author underscore relation table. Then now we want to, based on this book author relation, join our books table on the condition where the books.id is equal to our book author relation table dot book ID. Then we enter into a new line, and then we also have to join the data from our author table. So you join our authors table on a condition where our authors dot ID is equal to our book author relation table dot author underscore ID. Then we can type in a semicolon, and this is how we join two tables which have a many-to-many relationship together. Then we can click on run. However, when we try to run this query, we actually get met with a syntax error. So yep, this is a syntax error here. So let's try to look at what is wrong over here, and I think I see the problem. It's because over here we added a comma, so it's taking this row or this line over here as an actual column inside of the select query. So we actually have to delete this comma, and now that when we try to run, we should see this beautiful statement over here, success, no rows returned. Right, so nice. Let's go to our table editor, and inside of our table editor over here, you should see this new book authors view. So that's great, with the name of the author over here. Nice, so now that we have created a new view inside of Supabase, we have to go ahead to go and settings and integrations. And inside of our Supabase integrations, we have to get schema once more, so that we now have access to our book authors view. So we can go back into our widget tree, and now inside of this page over here, the book details page, inside of our column, instead of querying our books table, we actually want to query our book authors view table, and we still want to get a single row, and for the filters it will be where our ID is equal to our book ID. And actually for this filter or for this query, we're only getting one row. So we're getting one row inside of our book authors view, but one book could have multiple authors. But to make it more simple, we'll only be getting a single row. So so think of it as like getting the main author. We'll still show the other authors here, so it should be fine. So now in this byline over here, let's go ahead and change our author name. So for text 2, let's go under book authors view, and now we can choose the author name. Nice. Last but not least is the ISBN number. So this will be under book authors view, ISBN number. We also have to give it a default value of null. Okay, great. So we have this top section done. Now let's move on to this authors section. And now to show all the authors of this book, we need to select this row, and inside of this row, we need to add a Supabase query. So it's Supabase query. And now for the table, instead of querying the authors table, we actually need to query our book authors view table. So why can't we just query our authors table? That is because the authors table only contains information about the author. It does not contain information about which authors wrote which book. And that information is only stored in our books editions view. So we need to query our book authors view. Oops, not book editions view, sorry, the book authors view. So with this book authors view table selected, we then need to query a list of rows since multiple authors can write the book. And we need to add a filter over here. This filter will filter where the ID, which is the book ID, is equal to our book ID page parameter over here. We click on confirm, and you can see that multiple authors are generated. Author data is generated. But we actually need more author data, which is currently not present in our book authors view. So we actually have to go ahead to our SQL editor, and we have to add some more data over here. So apart from the author's name, it'll be authors.birth date and authors.country. Remember, for the last column, do not add a comma over here. But now if we try to run, you can see that there's an error saying that the relation already exists. So in the first line over here, we need to add these words: create or replace. Then if we click on run, you see that now that it shows this beautiful statement of success, no rows returned. And now if we go into our table editor and check out our book author view, we have more data here as well. So now that we have edited our view, we will have to go into settings and integrations once more and get schema again. Now we can go back to our widget tree and actually link up the data here. So for this country text, we will change this text field and we'll choose our authors view row, this second one over here, which corresponds to the column. So when I hover over this, you can see that it's lighting up on the left side. So you need to choose this one, and we'll choose the country. Give it a default variable value of null. For the birth date, we'll change this to the birth date of the author, default variable value of null, and the name, change this to the name of the author. Now let's move on to our additions table, or additions data. So with the row selected, we also want to create a new backend query. And for this backend query, it'll be a Supabase query. And now for the table over here, it'll be our book additions view. So the query type will likewise be a list of rows. And for the filter, it'll be the same, where we're filtering where the book ID is equal to our page parameter book ID over here. Confirm. Now we have multiple additions. Let's change this text property over here. For the second text, it will be our book additions view, and we'll choose the edition number. Now for the publisher, our book additions view publisher. Give it a default variable value as well, and last but not least will be the publish date. Alright, so yep, we have linked up all the data successfully. Now one last thing that we have to do is we have to add the navigate back action for this icon. So let's quickly go into the open action flow editor of this icon. When the button is tapped, we'll just choose this navigate back option. Alright, yes, and that should be it. Now we can go ahead and actually add some data, dummy data over here, and go ahead and test it out in test mode to see that everything works perfectly. Alright, so let's just open test mode for now, and let me just quickly add some dummy data. Alright, so I've just added some dummy data with 3 books with cute cats as the pictures, as well as a few editions and a few authors as well. And you can see that we see all 3 covers for these 3 books. So let's say this book seems pretty interesting. If I go ahead and click into it, I can see this description page. So this book is called Book 1 by Author 1 and has an ISBN number of 123456789. If we go ahead and check our Supabase database for Book 1, yes, that's the correct ISBN number. Alright, so if we scroll down to the description over here, we can see the authors over here. And looks like these 2 authors are the same for some reason, but our additions are working correctly. And the date is also not formatted well, so let's quickly see what's wrong inside. So the problem likely lies in the name as well as the country. So let's actually go ahead and do this again. So we remove this, and I think instead of country, this should be name actually. So we need to check to choose the correct view. So I think the reason for that happening was because we chose the wrong book authors view row. So we need to choose the one that corresponds to the query on this row itself, which will be this one. And we need to choose the name over here. Now let's check the birth date. The birth date should be correct. So, but just to make sure, let's do it again. And this will be this first one, birth date. And now since this is a date field, let's try to format this date. So we'll choose date time format instead of no further changes. And we can choose the one that we like the most. Let's just choose this one. This one looks pretty good. And confirm that. And last but not least will be the country over here. So we remove this first. Then we go ahead and choose the correct book author's view. And this will be country. Right, so now let's quickly change this publish date as well. For available options, we'll choose datetime format, and we'll choose, let's choose this one as well. Yep, then we confirm. Then now let's go ahead and quickly reload test mode. Okay, so let's try seeing the data for this book again. And great, now we have two different authors and the dates are being formatted correctly as well. So if we go back and choose a different book, this book only has one author as well as one edition. Alright, so yep, that wraps it up for this entire mini-series, this 4-part mini-series. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.